Now, 27-year-old Suleimana Abdul Samad, also known as Awuche, was featured on JoyNews in that feature talking about the tallest man in the northern part of Ghana, is apparently suffering from a medical condition which will have to be treated. Suleimana, originally of average height, sprouted within a short period and in what his family suspects could be a case of gigantism, which causes abnormal growth, notably in height. Suleimana's aunt Rukayat Sali explains they've not been able to send him to the hospital for several years due to financial constraints. She spoke with my colleague when he visited the family. We'll bring you more on that story. But to the big one, clamp down on activities of fraudulent traditional priests selling get-rich-quick messages and blaming TV spiritualists for KASOA ritual killing, a lazy investigation. These two opinions basically summarize the two major positions or arguments about ritualists on TV after two teenage boys allegedly killed a 10-year-old for money rituals. The first statement was made by former President Kuffour, and the second by the chairman of the National Media Commission, Dr. Yabwedu Ayeboafo. Now, whatever your stance, you'd agree that we definitely need to have a conversation about this. And this morning, we'll be having that conversation with the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, Andrew Danso ANINKORA, and lawyer Eduji Tamakulu. But shortly, let's set the premise for our conversation. Here's former President Kuffour advocating the clampdown on activities of fraudulent traditional priests selling get-rich-quick messages in the media.
It's in backwardness, How could young people, what do they know? And unfortunately, you media people too, you are giving so much exposure to tricksters and fraudulent people, promising everything. When you look at them, you should know that these are people who really, who are themselves just bad and ignorant. And that's not the way for our society to go. So I think media, the editorship of your institutions should rise to the occasion and cut out anything that would defraud society and also make asses of the community. We need to do that. Media and of course the authorities too, if you like, social and community leadership should come up and tackle all these people who are now virtually hijacking the airwaves with vain promises and trickery. They should be earlier eradicated than even some of the diseases we're talking about.
Former President Kuffour there. Now, this has not only sparked conversation in homes. There's a campaign on social media which started today, and there are many people who are sharing their thoughts about this. I'll be bringing you those comments shortly. And also would hear from the NMC boss or chairman who says, oh, this conclusion is quite a lazy investigation. But he also talks about the challenges in dealing with content on televisions. But the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association's president, Andrew Danso ANINKORA, has joined the show. Thank you so much for your time this morning. First off, let me take your initial reaction to the story we heard from KASOA. Hello, Mr. ANINKORA, if you can hear me. I'd like to take your initial reactions to the story of this alleged murder for money rituals.
Right, okay, thank you. Let me first and foremost send our condolence to the affected family and also to the community, and then also our prayer support for the unfortunate children who find themselves in this particular situation and also their affected family. It is unfortunate that this should happen, and this should be a discussion, especially of the national dimension at this moment. But then all that said, I believe it gives room for us, it creates an opportunity for us to engage in an issue that has been a national concern for some time, that has to do with the management of broadcasting content in the country. I don't think that anybody is against some form of standardizing, some form of getting us all to a particular level of understanding concerning what we do or what we churn out on.
Too bad we have a challenge with that line. Hopefully we can get it working better and hear from Mr. ANINKORA on his submission on this matter. But we've got lawyer Eduji Tamaklo also on the line to get the legal perspective to all of this. Thank you so much for joining the program, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Tell us your initial thoughts when you heard about this incident.
Yeah, about it, quite horrifying. The graphic description of what happened is unimaginable. I mean, to think that youngsters of that age would conceive to commit such a dastardly act, I mean, it's inconceivable. My thoughts to the family, the father and mother of the young boy who lost his life in such a painful manner. I think that we should not have such a story again. It's very horrifying and painful.
Eduji Tamaklo would hear from the NMC board shortly, because he makes reference to challenges in the law which makes it difficult for them to manage the content put out by various media houses. Let's listen to him, then I'll have you explain to us what you think we can do in terms of dealing with this legally.
That's fine.
I get that we should all be more, but then if the charge sheet says that they say they watch TV, that's why they did that, then I think that maybe that is a lame excuse for them. You know, you see, the point is that I don't know. Because seriously, I mean, we should be more on some of the things that we see on our television and all that. But to impute that a heinous crime as this, merely to the fact that somebody watched television, I think that it is too far-fetched. But the issue is that we all have to be concerned about some of the things that we watch, you know. But to put it on the charge sheet that this is the reason why they did that, I think that this is a very lazy investigation.
But from the point of view of regulation, I mean, which is where the NMC comes in, you take part of the blame at least? Some say this is a reflection of failure of regulation.
You see, the issue that we are dealing with are this. You know, the Constitution provides for, under Article 167, that the National Media Commission should take all appropriate means to promote the highest journalistic standards. But the Constitution also prescribes the way and manner that any rule that the National Media Commission will want to take effect will have to go through Parliament for approval. You may recollect that the National Media Commission has developed guidelines on a number of issues, including broadcasting standards, including rejoinders, including newspaper publications and all that. When the National Media Commission in 2002 attempted to turn some of these guidelines into regulations, which meant that it must go through Parliament for Parliament to approve it before it becomes effective. Parliament at the time declined, you know, and therefore they have remained guidelines even up to today. Now, if you read Article 173 of the Constitution, you also come across a provision that, subject to 137, the National Media Commission cannot interfere with the workings of any media house or any media person. So these are the constraints within which the National Media Commission works. They can only act where provision has been made for them to act. Now, you know, the broadcasting bill was drafted alongside the right to information bill. But the focus of Ghanaians was on the right to information bill that was passed in 2019 and became operational last year. As we speak, the broadcasting bill has not been passed into law. In fact, last year, the Minister for Information did all that he could to ensure that the law was passed. But eventually, it didn't get passed because maybe of the workload of Parliament or in terms of what is considered more important or other one. So the National Media Commission cannot, for instance, that somebody has put some offensive material on air. The National Media Commission cannot close down that station. They can only appeal to the owners of that station to be decorous in the way that they go about their responsibility.
Bayadejik Tamako, we just had the NMC chairman talk about the constraints in the law when it comes to dealing with content from media houses. But does the law in any way create the avenue for us to deal with this particular issue?
Yes, so once again, I listened to the chair, my senior at the bar, lawyer Ayebuafo. His position relative to what the Constitution says is absolutely correct. And it's important that we provide a little bit of background. See, because of the long, almost 11 years of military rule, when we transition into democratic rule, with the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, we wanted as much as possible to create an environment that allows for the expression of speech and to place very little or no limitation on speech. Because the whole idea was that we thought that, look, speech was a critical element of our democratic experiment. And so, consistently, the Constitution made provisions that allows little or no censorship at all. And so if you look at the article from 167, 168, so 170 going, the laws on media and the expression of speech, among other things, you notice that it's always about the protection of speech and the protection of content because of the fear that immediately you allow an institution of state to have a certain responsibility or that regulatory powers to describe or, as it were, control what content should be, put out there. The tendency for abuse becomes very high. But I strongly believe that the conversation, if we situate it well, and has to do with some of these people who have now abused the airway relative to advertisement and others, we can also do a fallback to the Criminal Offences Act. Because if you look at particularly sections 137 of the Criminal Offences Act, Act 29, it has its heading, charlatanic advertisements. Okay? And so if you look at even the heading itself, it says charlatanic. And now it goes to say that, look, any form of advertisement in any journal or newspaper that borders on fortune-telling, palmistry, astrology, among other things, and the purpose is to deceive the public, among other things, it makes it a criminal offense. So I strongly believe that if we can, as it were, get part of the police service, a unit dedicated to controlling some of this, especially the cybercrime unit, because some of these things are within the realms of the cyberspace, among other things. I think we should have a way of clamping down on this conduct.
So if I get you from what you just quoted, then we need to determine that there is some deceit or something of the sort happening in order to apply this.
You see, the way the provision is quite broad to permit such a clampdown. It's said broad. You see, it's also important to note that this legislation that was passed in the 60s. So you have the parliament there thinking into the future. So look at from 1960 to 2021.
All right. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Lawyer Tamaklo. Let me go back to the GIBA precedent because this comes down to the broadcasters as people are arguing on social media, and even we've heard former President Kuffour say. So what is GIBA's stance on this, sir? Hello? Do I have Mr. ANINKORA on the line? Hello?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Right, okay. So I was saying that when you just suppose what is in public domain, what is being discussed in public domain with what the former president said, I think it's about the same thing that is being said. For instance, that there is a need for us to have some kind of standard, some kind of finesse to what we put out there in public domain. Yes, we all agree to this. The fact that something has happened at the moment, and it's been alluded to the fact that these children probably were watching television, and that is what caused them to do this. That is where I see a disconnect. The important thing is for us to continue.
But it's on the charge sheet. We are told that children stated that themselves.
Well, the charge sheet is not the finality. It is the judgment. It is the investigation. If indeed they said they watched some television, which channel is this? If they spoke to somebody, how did they speak with the person? We need to investigate who is that person. For instance, it is criminal for somebody to say, bring me human part. So what are we doing to that person who spoke with them and said, bring me human part? What are we doing to the broadcasting station which allowed somebody to sit there to say, bring me human part?
No, but he didn't say that on television. Per what we know, he didn't say that on television. He said that when they called him.
So that again lends some credence to the fact that it is possible that they did not get this information from the television. So if we are going to investigate, or if we are going to discuss what has happened, we would find out that there are rooms, there are areas that we need to look at, there are gray areas that we need to look at. Of course, when was the last time somebody stopped blaming the devil for the things that they do? Because the devil is blamed, the devil is responsible. No. So let us discuss, let us open it up. For instance, through this discussion, we are getting to know some of the laws that are there that can be implemented. We are getting different understandings of the laws that can be implemented. And so I believe strongly that the NMC probably will come back to the table for us to look at the totality of it, how they can operate, how we can all operate, and make sure that we have some sanity in the system. When
the NMC chairman spoke to my colleague Evans Mensah on Newsnight last night, he did mention that somewhere in 2016, 2017, they came up with a regulation that was shot down by GIBA, and it had to do with content regulation. And he cites it as an example to some of the challenges they have in trying to sanitize the system.
Okay, so let me just pull a joke. GIBA, we are not sharpshooters, we are not marksmen, we are not snipers. We never shot anything down. There was a law, LI 2224. We found some understanding that we thought was in contravention with the Constitution. The matter was taken to the Supreme Court for interpretation. The Supreme Court gave interpretation. We are not against the regulation of content. We are not against the standardization of content. We are not against anything that is done to clean the system. Society is evolving. Society is developing. Society is growing. Day in and out, we'll find new methods of doing things, which probably laws might not cover. when we sit down and we discuss and we find how we can introduce those new methods, those new technologies into our day-to-day activities, and we are okay with it and it does not contravene the Constitution, I think we are all free to go. But when we find some kind of activity that we find contravening the Constitution and we draw attention to it, it should not be understood as being negative or being an impediment. It is for the development of society, and the Constitution is there to protect and to guide us to arrive at a safety point where we all want to be. Everybody is at peace with his neighbor, so that we don't do things and say that because we need to do these things, we do them hurriedly and we don't think through them only for us to find out that we made mistakes. No, that is not what we want to do.
All right.
That is what we are saying.
So prior to this incident, has GIBA had reason to sit and discuss this issue about people coming on television to double money, people making very outrageous promises, especially with regards to making money and getting rich quickly?
So prior to this incident, GIBA has been engaging the national, the Chamber of Telecommunication to find means of curbing some of these activities on television. GIBA has been engaging the National Film Authority to discuss how we can standardize or we can put categories to the kind of content that we put on television. GIBA has been talking to the National Media Commission to bring back the discussion to the table. In fact, GIBA has been speaking with other agencies and organizations how we can get some of these things ironed out, and then we can see our way clear. GIBA has been on top of this issue.
But I want to believe that some of these stations, if not all of them, are members of your association. Are they committed to preventing such persons from coming to their...
I am assuming when you say these stations, you are saying these stations, some of these stations which are found to be perpetrating some of these activities. That is what you mean?
Yes, please.
And then the last time we checked, fortunately, none of them is a member. But we are not saying we are not concerned about this. Our concern is stretched to the industry, the totality of the industry holistically. So this is every discussion we have, we take into consideration the industry, including members and non-members.
All right. Let me just take your final thoughts, Lawyer Ezoji Tamaklo. In your submission, you did mention our history, which has played a very large role in the kind of things we see today where people don't want us to go back to the era of silence. So moving forward, how do we chart a course that allows people to have the freedom of expression, freedom of association by practicing whatever religion they want to, and also ensuring that we sanitize the system at the same time?
I just want to give you a scenario so we can just suppose. You see, for a long time, we used to have what is called indecent exposure as a criminal offense. Now we've moved into the internet age. Then there was this phenomenon of revenge pornography, where maybe two lovers, one feels jilted, and now decides to publish intimate content that came to him in the course of that relationship. For a long time, prosecutors could only prosecute the offenders for indecent exposure, right? Until we now have to pass the cybersecurity law, which now makes it criminal for you to even threaten someone to expose intimate or nude pictures of the person. So that is legislation responding to current trends. Now, you note that some of these people who do this stuff, they even go to the extent of doing live streaming. So it is no longer a known television station or radio station promoting. They are basically all they need is internet bundle and a Facebook account. And they are on there live streaming and doing their own business. How do you bring these people within the sphere of regulation? And for me, that is where the conversation should be going. So we can ensure, because what we need to understand is that at the core of our constitutional provision is a question of public safety, public morality, and a certain level of public decency. These things are required in the Constitution. So we need to do a critical balance between ensuring that people have access to whatever content and one that also promotes public morality, public decency. Yeah.
So do you believe that a revision of the Broadcasters Bill and the passage of same will help you with this problem?
These things are very important. We need to look at it, engineer it in such a way that would ensure that we promote public decency. It is good for all of us.
I appreciate your time here this morning, lawyer Eduji Tamaklo, sharing his thoughts with us on what the law says with regards to people making or giving get-rich-quick messages on television, and now he's even included social media. But let's take some of your comments. Hashtag Stop Money Rituals on TV is trending, and it's a hashtag to help bring an end to the menace of fake ritualists in our media space and society, and we've been sampling a few tweets and posts on Facebook. So this is from Silva, hashtag YDFM. It's if the heinous murder of this 11-year-old boy, we are told he's 10 actually, at KASOA doesn't trigger our leaders to bring out policy to kick out these ritualists on TV, then our corrupt leaders are heartless and irresponsible. And he asked the hashtag Stop Money Rituals on TV. This one is just a bold statement, no long talk, just stop the money rituals on TV. And this is from Niso Music. He says, hashtag Stop the Money Rituals on TV. It's about time. Hashtag Niso. This one is from Eugene Zuta, and he's a gospel musician, adding his voice to the calls to stop the money rituals on TV. And this is trending on Twitter, trending on Facebook. A lot of people arguing that if we do this, unfortunately, we've lost one soul, but we may prevent the loss of more. This is from Nana Abrompa says, what are we going to wait for? What signs do we need again? Action now. Hashtag Stop Money Rituals on TV. We must act now.